Let me guess, you are interested in growing lavender like this one. This is Mexican lavender. Maybe you want to grow the English lavender like this one. Whatever lavender you want to grow from those two, stay tuned for this video because I am going to tell you what I've learned in the last 3 years or 4 years growing lavender on this hillside garden. I'm going to give you the tips and tricks. And let's get into it. This is my edible hillside garden. In an effort to fill this area, I chose a couple of things to add that's going to stay green year round. Something that's beneficial, beautiful, and it's going to grow with very little water. And I chose lavender. The first one I chose was the Mexican lavender, and then I decided to add some English lavender. There's a few differences on both of them, but for the most part, the caring for them is the same. Let me tell you what they like. Before I continue, hi, I'm Diana with Garden Love. I'm happy you're here. If you're new, please consider subscribing and liking the video. And if you're one of my most amazing subscribers, I don't even want to call you subscriber. I want to say my friends that are always here supporting me and leaving me comments. Hello friends, let's talk about lavenders. I want to tell you guys what I've learned about growing lavenders on this hillside versus a pot actually, and let's get into it. You can see here most of my garden, my hillside garden, is lush and green, and that's because I chose specific things for it to look this way. This is the English lavender. As you can see, it is in full sun. They absolutely love the sun. They thrive in the sun, and they are one of the easiest plants that I have grown up in this hillside. With the few tips that I do want to give, the best time for you to plant any of the two lavenders that I mentioned is during spring or fall, because lavenders do not like to sit in water, and lavenders do not like a lot of water. In fact, they actually prefer inconsistent watering, and they like to dry out between waterings. So for that reason, if you plant it during the hot summer days, it's going to be too thirsty. You're going to flood it with water. The roots are going to get rot, and it's basically going to die. I made the same mistake a couple years ago. I actually made the same mistake growing it in a pot, thinking that it's so hot, it's a small pot, it needs water. It doesn't need that much water. But the key to it is that you have to plant it before it gets hot during the beginning days of spring and or at the end of the summer, the beginning days of fall. That way it can focus its energy on growing its roots and not maintaining the foliage and how thirsty it's going to get during the summer. Lavenders are pretty hardy. I'm in zone 9B. They do really well over the winter. They don't skip a beat. They're full of lush green. I don't even know if you call these leaves, but they are always green. During the spring, they're going to get this beautiful purple flower. This is the Mexican lavender. They grow anywhere from 26 to 38 inches. They can grow pretty wide. Let me show you. This whole row is lavender. One thing I do want to tell you about the Mexican lavender, take a look at how woody the stems are. So you're gonna want to maintain that. Every year at the end of the summer, you can harvest and cut up all the flowers and set it up for fall, so it can grow a little bit in between fall and in winter. It'll be ready to be winterized, and then in spring it's gonna sprout new little branches and new beautiful flowers. You guys know my story. I've neglected my garden for the last 2 years due to a medical injury, but these need major trimming, which I might get to it the end of this season. But for that reason, the Mexican lavender is actually going to be on my second, the number 2 versus number 1. And as you guys can see, it gets really wide if you don't tame it, if you don't trim it. So I suggest that if you're going to add lavender, just keep that in mind. It will require trimming every year at the end of the season. It is gorgeous. I mean, this is so pretty, especially if you maintain the trimming. Every year it just comes back lush and the blooms are so beautiful. I love it. Let's go back to see the Spanish lavender so you guys can see that growing habits. As you can see here, the growing habits for this one is to spread wide. The stem is pretty woody, so you're gonna want to keep up with that cutting, because if I try doing the cutting right now, I'm gonna need something really hard, something strong and sharp to cut through this and trim it. I'll wear my glasses because it's really bright right now, but I do want to say that the English lavender, to me, I think they are stunning. I love their growing habits. They are really wide, they're really bushy, and they also grow upright, so you get to actually enjoy. Sorry, there was some loud noises in the street. Anyways, so if you really want like a focal point or a hedge or something that's just going to take up a space very nicely, this is the lavender I recommend. I wish I would have added this lavender instead of the Mexican lavender, but that's the whole point about gardening, is that we grow and learn, grow and learn, grow and learn. And you know what? In a few years, those lavenders are going to have to be removed because my fruit trees are taking over. And that was the whole point. I wanted to add green so we can get some ground cover to help retain the moisture in the soil. And eventually, some things are going to get removed and replanted. And maybe if there's going to be room for one plant over there, which I think there's like 3 there that I was showing you guys, now there's probably going to only be room for one, and I'm probably going to go back to the English lavender because I love its growing habit. It doesn't have all the woody stem like the other one, so this is going to be a lot easier to trim. So at this point, I think it's just preference and the space that you're working with. Do you want something to be more spread widely, or you want something to go up and just kind of do like a beautiful hedge? It's going to be completely up to you. Both of them do not like a lot of water, and they don't like consistent watering. They like to go dry in between the watering. They love full sun, so anywhere from 6 to 8 hours, which they do get that in the hillside here. One thing that I want to say about the Spanish lavender, oh my goodness, last year I got so many pups popping up everywhere, and I transplanted those lavenders. They're fairly easy if you do it in the spring. Like I mentioned, that's the best time for you to plant them. I transplanted them all over the space, and they did great. I put some in a pot. I gave some away, and they did fantastic. A lot of people were surprised when I think I posted a video that so many pups came out. They're not pups, they're actually seedlings. They came out from the seed, so it's self-seeded because I have mulch here and they get water. So I had so many seedlings. And let me show you one of them. Hold on. This is a lavender seedling that came from the mother plant over there. I do not want this lavender here because it's actually part of my pathway. That one is another seedling right there. I don't want that there as well because I don't want it to overtake my conquat. So those are 2 lavenders that I'm going to have to transplant, but I'm not going to do it right now that it's already hot. I'm going to do this at the end of this summer, which I honestly prefer to do it at the beginning of the spring because that's when the plant is naturally growing, and I want to transplant it during a time that it's going to naturally want to grow its roots. So I would prefer you do it during spring. You could do it in fall, but for better success, the very beginning of spring, if you have to transplant them. They're pretty cold hardy, so you don't have to worry about that. And as always, anything that you transplant, you want to hydrate it very heavily the day before and hydrate it very heavily in the next few days, even though that's contradicting to the plant not liking a lot of water. So just for a week, make sure it's well hydrated, then do it twice a week until you notice that it gets established. Maybe sometimes I'll put a big container, a pot in front of it to give it some shade, because you're most likely going to put it in a place where it's full of sun, 6 to 8 hours of sun. So therefore, just so it doesn't go into a transplant shock and it doesn't get really thirsty, put something that provides shade. That way it can help it get established. So those are my tips about transplanting it, and those are my tips about both of the plants. Make sure that you harvest and trim every year. Make sure that you plant it or transplant it in spring, that's ideal. Put it in full sun, because as you can see here, this place gets sun from the very beginning in the morning. Right now it's the afternoon. Not until the sun goes over this hill, these trees, everything growing on this hillside is going to get full sun. So another thing, if I noticed that the more plants are near each other, they create a microclimate. I'm sure that the theory of them talking to each other through roots is true. I believe that. So I'm sure that it has also a positive effect on the plants if you're growing them around other plants. So if I say that to point out that if you're planting a plant and it's isolated by itself, or it's just the first plant, think about adding multiple, and then later if you need to remove a few. And that's what I'm gonna do here. Remember what I mentioned earlier? This whole hill, I think there's 3 or 4 lavenders, and I'm gonna have to remove a few eventually, because I need to keep the pathways open for my Snow Queen nectarine. I'm so excited. That tree is loaded, and at some point we're gonna have to trim it. So for that reason, we definitely need pathways. We need to be able to walk in there and actually work with what we have here. And so far these lavenders have fulfilled their purpose of creating a ground cover and creating a microclimate, and just allowing the soil to retain the water that's being watered. So everything has a purpose, everything doesn't have to be permanent. It can be temporary, and just enjoy it and learn from it. And that's what I've been doing, and I absolutely love the process. I had some plants right there. That whole area where my artichokes was covered. I even forgot the name of the plant. It grew so wide. I couldn't believe how big that plant was. And I asked my husband, please remove this. Then the artichokes started popping up. I added a loquat over there. I added some more lavenders in the front, because I want the front of this whole hillside to be covered just like this rosemary's covering. Remember I mentioned that some rosemaries didn't make it over there, but now that we have the right microclimate, the right drip system, it's growing over there. And I added 3 lavender plants, which is gonna get so pretty. It's gonna be the center. That's the dead center of my hillside garden, and I planted my favorite tree at the dead center of my hillside garden. Now I'm going on a whole bunch of side notes. This video was about lavender, and I'm gonna stick to that. Yes, they are amazing. Highly recommend them. It just depends what you want to do with it. What's the purpose in your garden? The look that you want to go for. So yeah, let me turn you guys around. The last thing I want to leave you guys with is that when you plant your lavenders, make sure that you add plenty of mulch. As you can see here, there's still a lot of wood chips here that we added. The level of wood chips have gone down, but we're eventually going to add more. And that's the reason why this mother plant was able to seed so many of these little lavender plants. I mean, I think I took about a dozen out of this area, little baby ones, and that's going to help. I want to say almost everything likes well draining soil. This soil was put in here from Foothill Soil here in Santa Clarita, and their soil has been proven to be amazing. I'm going to put their information down below in case you guys live in this area or close by, because everything that I've planted in this hillside garden is thriving. I mean, not just growing, it is thriving, friends, given that I'm giving it the adequate amount of water. Well, friends, I hope that this video was informative. I hope that it helped you decide which lavender you want to grow, and giving you some tips on how easy it is to grow lavender. I get a lot of messages saying that lavender is one of the hardest things to grow and they always died. Honestly, the biggest killer of lavender is that you are overwatering it and you're not planting it in the right time. So those are the 2 major tips I want you to take away from growing lavender, their growing habits, and that's it. I hope you guys have a blessed day. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.